Hey, what's up? Hello, guys. This is bethfaceplays, and today we're back with Chapter 3 of Buried, an interactive story. I actually really love this story, the story and the game itself. So, yesterday, we were going to be making the decision as to whether or not we should shoot for the center of this monster. Sorry. Or if we should shoot for the tentacles. We have one shot left. So, let's get into this. And I'm going to immediately say that we're going to shoot for the center, because shooting for the tentacles is just a waste of a shot. The creature is seconds away from tearing into my shoulder. I have to stop it now. I grunt as I try to angle the rifle in the direction of the beast's formless core. The appendages begin tugging down on the barrel, and it's at that moment I pull the trigger, unleashing my final shot. Thank God I saved this bullet earlier. The shot aggravates it enough to win me some breathing room. I've saved my shoulder, but this thing's still alive and kicking. But then I see the creature extend its tentacles in a violent whip-like motion away from me while it makes that static screeching sound. The creature disappears into thin air and reappears a few feet from me, retreating. With a shudder and a cry of desperation, I get to my feet just in time to see the monster head in the direction of the biochem room. Amy looks over at me from her terminal at the hangar doors, looking petrified. I manage to help myself up when I see another figure nearing us. But to my relief, I realize it's a human figure. Dennis, with a gun. You okay, boss? He asks, but his eyes aren't on me. They are looking to the creature, trying to understand exactly what he has just seen. About 15 minutes ago, I heard the door to that maintenance room unlock, Dennis says, pointing to the room I'd tried to bust my way into earlier. Ah, Amy says, when I did the override up in the command center, it unlocked all small doors down here, including that maintenance room. I went inside there and hid, Dennis continues, and while I was waiting for you to come back, I found a massive trunk. There were a few guns in it, so I grabbed this one, he says, patting his shotgun. I'm glad you're safe, Dennis, or I'm glad you found some weapons. I'm glad he's safe. Thanks, boss, he says. Me too. Great. Now how is that door coming along, I ask Amy. She makes a few final key presses and says, done. The doors open with a noise of hydraulics and a whoosh of air. Dennis, Amy, and I climb up and head through the doors, moving on nothing more than adrenaline. I see her look longingly at the maintenance room Dennis took the shotgun from. You get into the hangar, Dennis says. I'll get some more firepower. Satisfied with the plan, Amy heads through the door. We scramble inside, finally inside the hangar. Dennis approaches from behind, holding several guns and looking like a kid who grabbed an armful of Halloween candy. Amy reaches out for a 9mm with one hand. Dennis turns to me and holds out a shotgun and a handgun for me to choose. Both look deadly. The shotgun looks more powerful, but the handgun will probably be more precise. I'm gonna do handgun. I select the handgun and am comforted by the way it seems to fit perfectly in my shaky grip. There are more creatures coming, as many as a dozen. They are floating down the hall quickly, their tentacles slithering. The way their light seems to mingle together is almost beautiful. Close the door, I yell at Amy. She dashes to another terminal mounted on the inside of the hangar doors and tries desperately to close them. It's not working, she says with tears in her eyes. This terminal is disabled. Dennis looks through the open doors, readying himself to shoot the first monster that nears us. Should we try to slow a few down or just run for it? He asks, his gun at the ready. We're gonna run for it. Good idea, says Amy. With that, we turn around and sprint out onto the hangar floor. The room is enormous, so large that to call it a room seems silly. A large concrete floor stretches out below an expansive lofted ceiling. The area is mostly empty except for one side, which has rows and rows of metal barrels. Back on the far wall is a lit area that seems to expose more rooms, labs, and machinery. Also in the rear of the hangar, I can see some kind of chamber or control center. Dennis and I follow Amy across the hangar floor. Behind us, a series of rough, slithering sounds tells us that the creatures have made their way into the hangar. From somewhere up ahead, a loud buzzing noise sounds out. It reminds me of the slight buzzing noise I'd heard in the forest, the noise that got me into all of this trouble in the first place. I look ahead and see that in the far back of the hangar a bright red light is flashing. There is a small hatch or door below the light. That hatch is open and I can see a shape inside it. I can barely make out the figure of a man standing there, holding an industrial microphone. And as soon as I see him, I hear his huge amplified voice. It blares down over an intercom system and he sounds pissed. "I don't know who the hell you are," he says, "but this is a government facility on lockdown and there are protocols to shit." I assume the curse coincides with the exact moment I see the creature. He sees the creatures. They are making their way through the hangar doors. There are maybe 20 feet between us and the creatures. I act instinctively, firing twice as the handgun comes alive in my hands. One shot goes into the core of one monster, causing it to jerk backwards. Another shot slows down another. The accuracy I get with the 9mm is amazing. Amy and Dennis take the cue and start firing as well. The floor becomes littered with a swirling white fluid from the wounded creatures' bodies, but they are not slowing down. The alarm keeps streaking behind us, and when I turn to see if anything has changed back there, I trip over my feet. I hit the ground hard and in an almost comic fashion slide several feet across the floor. From the ground, I see that we have managed to turn back 4 of them, but I also see that my estimate of a dozen is off. There are at least 20 of them. They're sick, dim light, sinister, and gloomy. Their appendages seem to bind together as they come forward. My only hope of survival is that the man in the far doorway has somehow shut the hangar doors. His voice comes blaring over the intercom again, broken by the booming noise of the gunfire that we are laying down. "Run here, towards the isolation chamber." I'm not sure how much time we have. I realize that I can sprint ahead of Amy and Dennis, or I can hang back and give them cover. I'm going to cover the others. "Go inside where that guy is," I say. "I'll make sure we don't have any of those things right on our tails. I'll hold him back for a while." I know it sounds macho, but it also feels like the right thing to do. I have to at least try to give us some kind of chance for escape. So as Amy and Dennis run through the doors, I blast at the next thing that I see moving. All I get for my troubles is that static-like hiss and a high-pitched whistling noise. I'm able to beat them back a bit, forcing them to scatter. Each flicker of light is a small victory. If nothing else, I'm buying Amy and Dennis time. When I'm certain there is nothing more I can do, I turn and run. I hustle, quickly catching up to Amy and Dennis, who stop and turn to provide me with cover fire. "There," Amy says, pointing to the small door where the man was standing earlier. The swarm is less than 15 feet away now, so furious that they are pushing through one another to get to us. I raise the handgun and fire, taking my time to aim. I hit one in the spider-like part of its body. I fire again, this time taking one in the core. I place 2 more rounds into this creature, eventually causing it to move backwards. We are in the middle of the hangar floor now, with the isolation chamber ahead and the monsters behind. Beside me, Dennis also fires. The kick of the gun jolts him, probably a result of him being weakened from blood loss. His shot lands true, though, causing a jerking stumble and a flickering of its light. "We're almost in," Amy yells as we get close to the door we hope will save us. We're gonna have Dennis and Amy going first, because we didn't just do all that for nothing. "Get inside," I tell Amy and Dennis, motioning for them to get moving with my gun. I open the door and give Dennis a push toward it. He resists, more eager to try taking down another of the beasts before he makes it to safety, but he eventually gives in. I wait a beat to make sure Amy is inside too. I fire off a few rounds on the creatures that are still headed for us, hoping to slow them down. When Amy and Dennis clear the door, I nearly dash inside, but then feel something hot seep into my back. "Roger!" Dennis yells. The pain in my back is so immense that I barely notice the fact that I am being lifted up from the floor. I look down and see that one of the creatures is using its flowing arms to grab me by my waist, its tentacles wrapping around me. It lifts me into the air, as if presenting me as a trophy to its friends. I try to focus, attempting to angle my arm in a way that will allow me to aim the handgun and place a bullet in its body. But it is shaking me violently, and its body parts are appearing and disappearing in a way that makes no sense, another oddity of its structure. I can literally do nothing more than hang there like a rag doll, hoping to be saved. As it continues to hoist me up, screeching its approval, Dennis comes back out of the room and fires off a shot. The bullet catches the monster on the underside of its core, sending it backwards and causing it to freeze for a moment. It releases me and I hit the ground, dropping my gun and again finding myself unable to breathe. I feel slightly dizzy, but that fades when I see Dennis is still standing outside of the door. He's firing into the beast's like a madman and doesn't see the one to his left coming in along the edge of the wall. Dennis, look out. Hearing my voice, he turns to look directly at me, but this is the opposite of what he needs to do. Behind him, the creature glides up, shaking back and forth in space as it moves. By the time Dennis turns and sees the creature coming, it has already drawn several of its appendages back to strike. Dennis tries to raise his gun, but it's knocked away by one of the tentacles. A second tentacle strikes, and Dennis is spun around and thrown off balance by the attack. Dennis catches himself before falling. A third tentacle wraps around Dennis's forearm, and I can see it squeeze, tightening instantly. The tip of the appendage passes clean through his hand, its blood-soaked tip poking out through his palm. Dennis's face grimaces with pain as he tries to wrench his arm free, but the creature's tentacle has his hand speared like a nail through wood. In a moment of dark clarity, I realize that I can free him with a clean shot at the monster's tentacle, but it will likely mean blowing Dennis's hand off. Dennis, I yell over the creature's high-pitched, static sound. Can you get free? I have a shot, maybe. No, Dennis gasps as the creature tosses him around by his hand like a puppet. Don't shoot, I can get free. I can't tell if he's right, but the other monsters are starting to encircle him. I need to act fast. He says he's got it? So I'm going to trust him. Dennis is fighting hard, doing everything he can to bring the gun around with his good hand. He's screaming as he tries to tear his hand away, screaming in both fury and desperation. This only seems to anger the creature, which then swats Dennis with another of its tentacles, opening a deep gash across his cheek. His skin peels back and his eyes go wide with shock. The creature drops him to the ground as if playing with him, and then the floor and space around Dennis seems to warp. The bottom quarter of his body seems to disappear before I realize it's been merged with the floor. At that moment, I know. It's over. 3 others swarm him, surrounding what remains of his fallen body. I don't even hear Dennis scream. There's just a frenzy of the crackling, sickening wail sound. After that, there is nothing else. Fury, sorrow, and absolute rage surge through my heart. I grab my gun as the remaining beasts come towards me. They'll kill me, but I don't care. This is war. As far as I'm concerned, this is... Amy grabs me from behind and pulls me hard inside. I try fighting her off, but she's persistent, and part of my mind knows she's right. Don't be an idiot, she yells to me. She practically throws me through the door. As I fall, I hear her fire off 2 shots before slamming the door closed behind her. I watch blearily as she punches a few buttons on a control pad on the wall. This is followed by a metallic click as the door locks. We are safe in the chamber, but Dennis is gone. And that's where we're going to stop for today. And we'll see what happens on the adventures of Amy and Roger. Minus Dennis now. I killed him. Apparently. So, that's it for today. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!